How's it going, everybody? It's Carlos, one of your hosts of the Bring on the Blitz podcast, and I am here with my co-host Rios. How's it going, Rios?
In the famous words of Hank Hill, dang it, Bobby.
There you go. And of course, we got the one and only Papi. He's in the house tonight. Papi, how's it going, bud?
What's good, guys? Y'all miss me?
You were gone?
No.
I feel like I was gone. I feel like I haven't been here.
Oh, is that why our ratings went up, Rios?
Yeah, that has to be it. People can understand what we were saying.
Whatever, bro. You guys lost all the Hispanic viewers, bro.
¿Qué dijo? Hey, man. ¿Qué? ¿Y eso con qué se come? No. Anyway. So, hey, man. Glad to be back again. It's like it's weird where to start. I mean, obviously, we'll be talking about the areas of concern like we do every week. We'll be talking about the positives. Yes, there were positives. And of course, who gets their flowers as well. All this and more after the intro. Hit it. All right. So let's start off with should we start off positively or should we just get right to it? What do y'all think?
Let's just get right to it because
let's get it over with.
It
Was a debacle.
Negatives and a very, very minute list of positives.
And you wouldn't think so looking at the score line, given how close the game was. But from the beginning, it felt like the Texans were gonna lose that game.
I think what you also understand is like, yeah, you're right about the score line, but I think a lot of what we all talked about areas of concern that had been kind of
they all played out. They
were exposed big time, weren't they?
Yeah, they're not picking up the stunts, not adjusting to the play calling to matchups on the defensive side of the field.
Yeah.
Time management. It hasn't been that big of an issue this season, but it was very glaring, especially on a couple of those plays towards the end of the game as well. It's like, what are we doing, guys?
Yeah, it was a weird thing. Like you can argue that the score looked like the way it did in hindsight. You're like, oh, 22 to 24, right? Like if you look at that score, you're like, oh, that wasn't too bad. But then when you actually watch the game and you realize, oh, in reality, it could have been more by the Packers if they hadn't really had all those turnovers.
Yeah, the Texans basically snatched defeat from the jaws of victory. Like the game was there to be won.
It really was. I mean,
you guys think so? Because I felt like the Texans were.
If they score 6 at the end,
going into halftime. I believe the Texans had the lead, right? It was like 19-16 or something like that.
Yeah, no, it was 19-14.
19-14.
19-14. The Texans going into the halftime with the lead, I was like, the Texans are going to lose this game. The way Green Bay had been playing, the way their offense was clicking, I was like, the Texans are going to lose this game. There's no way they can hold on to this lead.
Not just that. If you look at all the games across the season, Houston has had a problem scoring in the second half, and that comes out making those halftime adjustments. The other team's coordinators, they adjust at halftime, and they, are able to put points on the board. And Houston, I don't know what they're doing, what they do in the locker room at halftime, but whatever it is, I need to stop doing it because
it ain't working. It ain't working.
Hey guys, just keep doing what we're doing, and we'll get them.
I think Bobby's, playing Madden at halftime. All right, Madden, what should I do for this next play? Halfback dive.
Asking AI, what do I do here?
It doesn't even feel like they were taking their foot off the gas. They just couldn't get anything going. If you think about it, the reason why the Texans even got the lead was an interception, right? So it was all defense, and then Green Bay muffed one of the punts that gave the Texans like incredible field position.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
It was nothing that the offense really did.
Correct.
In that first half to like earn that lead. It was just a lead that, we were lucky to have it, but I was never at any point was like, oh, we can definitely score another 19 points in the second half.
Yeah, I think I put up the graphic, but typically teams that have 3+ turnovers win almost 99% of the time. I think it hasn't happened in almost like 30 years. Just wrong side of history.
Houston, Texas.
Wrong side of history.
Like the Texans break a record every week.
Every week, man.
Records that you didn't know existed. I was like, what?
This is not a record to keep though, because man,
you know what I take from this? Going in, I think we all thought it was going to be a close game. I don't think anybody really thought it was going to be a landslide victory. No. But even if it was, it wouldn't be surprising, basing it off of the Minnesota game, which is still the worst game that the Texans have played this season. Even though statistically speaking, right, that's what I was like. Even though statistically speaking, this was CJ Stroud's worst game of the season. Again, statistically speaking,
the whole offense is.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, like, cardio. Yeah, it goes back to the creativity, like Rios said. I mean, at the end of the day, you have to design the plays. At the end of the day, your offense has to execute. At the end of the day, your offensive line has to protect the quarterback. It's so many different things that happen. But before we really get into it, let's go in with our areas of concern. Okay. Usually, Rios, I know I start with you, but I'm going to start off with Papi here. What is your main area of concern that you saw this particular game?
Guys, I believe we can all agree that the biggest area of concern when it comes to this game against Green Bay was the offensive line. There was no doubt in our minds. Yeah. The offensive line, or whatever you want to call that.
Oh, watching them was offensive.
It was so bad.
I was offended.
It was so bad. The effort they were putting, the lack of any type of like wanting to win this game. I had to find adjectives for the word bad to describe
This boy used a thesaurus,
right?
It was awful, abysmal, atrocious, careless, defective, erroneous, faulty, imperfect, mediocre. Wow. And 1,000 other words that I can't even pronounce. They're so big.
Bro, he just went over 9,000 on his Inglés sin Barreras course.
Right?
It was.
That man is GED.
Because you can call you can talk about the secondary. You can talk about just how we're just letting Jordan Love just pick the defense apart. You can talk about the play calling, the offensive line, dude. It was so incredibly pitiful.
You know, it's a perfect example of their day. That play where Titus Howard tripped on Dalton Schultz's foot. That describes how the offensive line played on Sunday.
It was ridiculous. So CJ went 10 for 21 with 86 yards. I think it's the second lowest yards in his career, and by far the worst performance in his year and a half in the league.
Correct me if I'm wrong. He didn't even get 50% completion on this one, didn't he?
I believe he did not. He got sacked 4 times.
He had Anthony Richardson numbers on that one.
Yeah,
dude. Honestly,
55 net passing yards when you take out the sacks. Like,
yes.
And if you look at the Green Bay D line, it's not like they were like blitzing like every single second like crazy. They're not, they're not Tampa Bay, who one of the more aggressive blitzing defenses. Like Green Bay was sending 4 pass rushers most of the time.
That's it.
And they were still getting like incredibly, like I think they were pressuring at a rate of 48%. And anytime they would actually blitz, the tackles couldn't keep up with anybody.
No,
absolutely nobody. The center, whatever his name is, I forgot, escapes my mind. He looks like he wasn't even there half the time. And you guys, in the group chat, you guys brought it up. Kenyon Green, the revenge tour is over.
Yeah, that tour was canceled
before he even started. It feels like he had like a couple of good games, and going into this game, you think like if we can give CJ enough time, maybe we can make something happen. There was never any time. Thank God Joe Mixon was able to run the ball the way they did. I feel like the offensive line, when it came to that, they did a decent job. But as far as the pass protection,
non-existent,
dude. Let me go back to those words. Shoddy, substandard, unacceptable, crappy, I'm not gonna say that word. God awful.
Okay.
There was one that had one too many syllables. I'm not gonna attempt that, but it was ridiculous, man. It was ridiculous. And before I, a vein pops out of my head, I'm gonna let you guys talk about your areas of concern.
I mean,
go ahead, Riz.
rated the 29 on the PFF scores. Usually, an average score is around 50. The fact that he's at a 29, I think
you might as well not shown up.
I think it's supposed to be, everything's basically on the table as far as making personnel changes, possibly trades. We'll see, because they can't go out with that same starting five on Sunday. They can't. It clearly hasn't worked all season. They got to make some type of change.
And maybe against the Colts, you can maybe get away with it, but Green Bay, you knew going into this game this was the toughest matchup. I get it that the loss with Minnesota was really lopsided, but going into the game, we didn't really know that Minnesota was going to be as good as they have been. Green Bay, you knew they were good. Their defense was good. Their offense was good. I believe both of them are in the top 10. Defense and offense. Correct me if I'm wrong.
The offenses.
Yeah.
Defense, they've been struggling a little bit, but
regardless, this game it was going to be a game of matchups, and we just did not show up.
To back up your point on the offensive line, I'm going to read D'Amico Ryans' quote on the adjustments on the fly on the offensive line. He said, "That's coaching. Good coaches have to make sure we make those adjustments and get it done within the game. Mm-hmm. And that's where you separate yourself as a coach, being able to adjust on the fly from whatever you may have prepared for and what is happening at the moment. So you have to be able to adjust on the fly and get it fixed." End quote by D'Amico. What do you guys think of that quote? Rios?
No, he was right. They got out coached, and you saw it on multiple occasions with the time management, some of the play calling decisions, especially at the end of the game. If you're trying to force Green Bay to use all their timeouts, why are you throwing to short of the 6 on 3rd and 15? Like, just baffling.
And
presser, he's like, he didn't really know what their plan was. Like, how does your quarterback not know what the plan is? Like, that's a lack of communication.
To your point, Rios, it felt like you can really tell that this offense is really missing Nico Collins. The Texans are missing that big play guy, and I feel like Nico Collins has kind of masked this offense. Well, the flaws of this offense, because he was always that big play guy. When we needed like a 3rd and long or a first down desperately, CJ would always look upfield and he would find Nico Collins.
It's like when in doubt, right?
Exactly. Yeah. When the play falls apart, when the offense, when the O-line doesn't give you enough time, if you can see Nico, just throw the ball at him. Even if it's in double coverage, he will make a play.
You go somewhere, just toss it.
It's not like the Texans have ever done that before, Andre Johnson.
Yeah.
But without him, right, Diggs, he hasn't transformed the offense like we thought he would. Tank Dell is basically non-existent. Schultz had an okay game. I believe Hutchinson had a decent big play catch as well. I wish we could see more of him utilized more, especially with Nico still out. But honestly, it just wasn't clicking. I have a quote here from ESPN from Nico Ryans when asked about the offense. Right, he says, obviously we didn't pass the ball well all day. It wasn't good all the way around. We ran the ball well. I thought Joe did a good job running the ball, but we needed to pass it. It was not good enough. Starting with the protection, if we can't protect, then that's going to make it difficult for the quarterback to make plays. And that is exactly how the game played out. That's exactly what happened. I believe CJ had a couple of rushes for a first down late in the game because, he was already tired of getting sacked all the time. He's like, let me just avoid this, not even look upfield. I'm just going to try to make something out of this myself. And whenever that didn't work, you could see it on the sidelines. Every time the special teams would come out to punt the ball, he was like throwing his helmet in frustration, just because like he wasn't allowed to make plays because they were giving him no time to do it.
So let me ask you this: how did that make you guys like? I'm not gonna lie, I did kind of like that myself, that he was showing some frustration because he's always a calm and cool and collected guy, right back there. But I think showing some frustration isn't necessarily a bad thing in that situation, just because it's like, at some point it's like I'm hoping it allows you to light a little fire under your coach, also. You know what I mean? And understand that if this is one of those guys that doesn't usually show his emotion like that, something is clearly wrong. Something clearly needs fixing, I'm okay with him showing it.
Years with Tom Brady, like he would let you know how he felt.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that you want from your leader. Like you want them to like take it personally if they lose. You want them to think about it, like, because that inspires it. Like, guys, like our quarterback's mad. Like we need to fix this.
And to y'all's point, I think, Papi, you brought this up about like the leadership. One thing that I noticed, and I don't know if you guys noticed it too, towards the end, when CJ Stroud was trying to make those plays literally on his own, when he was running to get those first downs, one play that really bugged me was the one where he went like he dove in and he got hit on the back of the head. But if you realize afterwards, none of his offensive line picked him up. He stood up.
I didn't even notice. If anything, my heart stopped for a second. I thought he got hit pretty hard on that play.
But usually your offensive line is there, or the guys are there to pick you up. I didn't see a single offensive line picking him up, unless
not just that, but like on that run when he got hit out of bounds,
there was like no drive, right?
I don't think they were able to pick him up, probably because they were all beat up from Green Bay, just like tossing them around all game. It was like they were getting manhandled. Like every type of pass rush, they were just shedding every single type of coverage. Like it was ridiculous how fast they were getting to
it's their lunch money and their snack money. Like it was just
they were taking their girls, they were taking like their houses, their children, like they were taking everything.
They took their Instagram accounts. It's my account now.
Yeah,
it was such
the
a
fact,
bad display, man.
It was. I like how, by the way, this was supposed to be just. It was just supposed to be like, "Hey, Papi, what's the negative?"
I know.
We have gone like 10 minutes on the O-line alone,
and that's ridiculous because the worst part is that's only one area of concern.
Yes, exactly. We haven't even touched on like Rios' point yet. This is still just Papi's.
Yeah. Let's talk about Rios' point because
all right, let's move on.
We got plenty to say on that too. We got plenty.
I'm sure the offensive line will come up again before we go.
With mine, because it kind of ties into where my area concern is, and I've been saying this since week one. The play calling, it is just unimaginative. It's not. He doesn't make adjustments. Even Tony Romo kind of called it out. It's like, they're sending six. Why are you in condensed formations? You should spread them out. That negates that, that pass rush at that point. Because at that point, you'll be able to tell who's going to be blitzing, who's going to be in coverage. But in those condensed formations, as we saw with like McKinney and with their middle linebacker, like they didn't look like they were going to blitz, but then they got through easily, untouched. And just like I said, the lack of creativity we saw last season. Tank Dell was able to create separation on the outside and they make plays for him, and he was able to put up numbers. This season, it's I don't really see them trying to draw plays for him or for even Schultz. I think on one of our other shows we had mentioned one of the areas of weakness for the Packers defense was the middle of the field. Yeah. Tight ends have been beating them all season. And we threw a grand total of 2 passes towards the tight ends with 1 catch.
To your point, I'm going to give you the DeMeco Ryans quote on the tight ends. When he was asked
tight ends,
about,
what are those?
He's like on where he thinks the tight end passing was successful. Pause. It says we were able to get one explosive there with Dalton Schultz across the middle when they were playing 3 deep, and we were able to hit them with an explosive, and also Kate Stover got an explosive on a check down. So those guys were active in the passing game. Of course, overall, our passing game was not. Everybody knows it. It wasn't good enough across the board. So we have to find ways to get everybody involved in the passing game, end quote. You know what bothers me about that quote a little bit? I like D'Amico Ryan's great. He's done a lot in the 1 year that he's been here, and then this season, of course, you have this happening, right?
Right.
That it's only one play. Each one of those guys had one play, and then they were non-existent.
They're doing cardio,
right? And that was the area that they needed to attack, the tight end position.
The thing is, like, maybe
Even
there were plays designed for that to be exploited, but the O-line could only give CJ half a second to make a decision.
Well, the thing is also when you have your tight ends and your running backs basically trying to block, and they're getting manhandled, that's a problem also.
Yeah,
because you're essentially making up for that.
He's not handled by 4, mind you. It's not like, again, the Green Bay Packers they were sending like 6 people at them.
But they're not even known for rushing, for high blitzing or anything like that.
They 17% of the time. They got there with just 4 people, but it was on those plays where they had the simulated pressure where they would send a guy and he would go untouched. Mm-hmm. Like there was this one play that they showed earlier that basically there was 2 guys against 1 Green Bay defender, and the guy still got through. Like, how does that happen?
Mm-hmm. I think the lack of awareness too. I was listening to Sports Radio 610 this morning. Seth Payne brought a good point. Like these guys, they were. He mentioned like Laramie Tunsil. He mentioned Titus Howard. The lack of that turnaround awareness. By the time they're past them, it's like, what do you do? It's over. Like, and that was a big area like that too.
Yeah,
the tackles were like as soon as they were past them, the tackles were already setting up for the next play. That's all they were doing. Because whatever, it is what it is.
But it's funny because like Tony Romo, when during the broadcast, he called out as well, like hey, the area they should be using is the tight ends and the running backs in the passing game, but we didn't see any of that.
Yep.
And Romo's a former quarterback, and he watches a lot of Green Bay. He's done a lot of their games, so he kind of knows his stuff. And he was pointing out like also that Houston is overly reliant on Stroud saving them on these 3rd and longs, and it's not sustainable for long-term success. And we saw it because a lot of those plays that he normally makes, they weren't there on Sunday.
They rushed him the most, right, during his 3rd downs?
Yep.
Yeah, that's when they rushed him the most because that's when they knew he bails that's when he knows he bails the Texans out on 3rd down. So what do? You take away that.
Yeah. So on 3rd downs, he dropped back 14 times and he was pressured 12 times.
Yeah.
That's just unacceptable.
And that's that's the perfect example of the Texans getting completely out coached and outmatched. Because the Packers came into this game with a clear game plan. Pressure on the quarterback.
Yeah.
That O-line cannot hold. And if they can, they won't be able to hold for all 4 quarters.
No, and they can't handle stunts still.
Exactly. And the fact that they were only sending 4 people meant that you're not like wasting all your resources, like getting to the quarterback. And then whenever there were times where the O-line was holding for more than half a second, everything else was bagged because nobody could get separation. Again, missing that big play guy like Nico Collins is a detriment to this offense. Look at me.
Detriment. Hey,
look at me. Look at me.
Boy said I'm pulling out.
I read books.
No, but like Romo said, they spread them out and take advantage of the wide receiver depth that they have. But they basically just had those guys out there doing cardio. Like,
is it time for Tank Dell to get benched? Like, do we need to see more Hutchinson out there? Tank Dell is not making a difference.
I don't think Tank should get benched just yet or get less receptions. I still think that there's something that's going on. I'm going to give Rios. I think he brought up a point about the creativity because Tank Dell. I mean, how do you regress that far? It's got to be some. I think it's both the creativity and also some of Tank Dell. I think it's a little bit of both. But honestly, actually, let me read you the D'Amico quote on Tank really quick. It says, with Tank, he just has to keep going. I believe in Tank. Believe he'll be able to make some big-time explosive plays for us. He just has to keep going, and he will do that. I have all the faith in Tank. So D'Amico still believes in it, and I think it's a little too early to call. Don't get me wrong. I like Hutch. Hutch had a clutch play.
Yeah.
They got the Texans to a really really important part, except they couldn't execute immediately after. But honestly, I'm not ready to give up on Tank just yet.
Yeah, I think it's maybe a little bit of a sophomore slump, but it's also he's been getting targets, but he hasn't been reeling them in. Like on that first drive when he drops the third down touchdown, like 9 times out of 10 he makes that play. I think some of it's a little bit of a slump, some of it's a little bit mental as well because he's not being utilized as much as he was last season. And look at like this guy's one of the best at creating separation. That should be able to draw some plays up for him, get him some easy touches, get him going. But Bobby's just not being innovative.
You know what brings my point up, Rios? Do you remember when you and I went to training camp? And I think, Papi, you also went. When you also went, we saw two things that were in common. I think I remember talking to you guys about it separately, of course, because we were there on separate days. I was like, you know what I'm realizing? That connection with Tank Dell and CJ Stroud was really weird during training camp. Like, I don't know who it was when I went with one of y'all. I think every time CJ Stroud targeted Tank Dell during training camp, one of two things happened. It was either a drop, an incompletion, or an interception.
Yeah.
Y'all remember that?
Yeah, I think it was with me because they targeted him a lot because it seems like they were trying to get him going in training camp, but
correct.
And we're seeing it on the field on Sundays. He's been getting targets, not as much as he was last season, obviously. But with Nico out, like he should be getting an uptick in targets. I mean, just 4 targets on Sunday, like it's not even wide receiver 3 numbers at that point. It's like
let me ask you all a question that I asked you guys. I think by week 2 or week 3, I can't remember, and it was: do y'all think with the acquisition of Stephon Diggs, and the problem of too many mouths to feed, has this hindered Tank Dell's performance?
I think so. I think, like I said, I think a lot of it's mental, just because he's not featured as much. The pecking order is going to be Nico, then Stephon, and then Tank Dell.
Okay.
And I think maybe it's taking a little bit of a toll mentally. He hasn't really like acclimated to it just yet, but he's got to get it figured out. We're at the halfway point of the season. Like you got to, get it going.
By now,
Papi,
you have to get it going. The thing with Diggs into this offense, I feel like he was gonna be like. I feel like he has become like the solidified wide receiver 2, right? Took that from Tank Dell. We knew it was gonna happen. The thing is, like now without Nico, it's already 2 games without him, right? He's still not getting the targets. Like I don't even know if that, like if it's like a Tank Dell issue at this point. Like, yes, it might be mental, but going back to the play calling, man, it's just like he's not getting involved. Talking about too many mouths to feed, like the mouths that you are like even feeding, it's not like they're killing it either. Don't get me wrong, Stephon Diggs has had like a okay spell so far, nothing to write home about. Nico has been the a standout by a mile wide receiver. It's not like everybody else is getting it, and then Tank Dell is just being left out in the dust. I just feel like the whole offense is just super lackluster and unimaginative. Damn, look at me pulling out these words like crazy.
Bro, what is you really practiced for today? Wow.
I read, bro. I have a script here. I have a script.
The number, just perspective of how abysmal the offense has been. So in passing rate, they're 24th in the league, 25th in EPA, 30th success rate. They're just not having any type of success. Even when they don't run the ball on first, second down, they're just not having any type of success.
The way the season is going, this team is going to make the playoffs and get bounced in the first round.
Yeah,
that's the way to go.
Yeah,
because the defense can only do so much for you.
Considering all the people that they had out, they had 5 starters out, and they still kept Jordan Love for the most part in check.
Yeah, I think that's exactly.
So let's move. Let's talk about some of the good stuff. Unless actually, we haven't even touched on Carlos's point. Yeah, you're right.
Oh,
Mine's quick though. Mine's quick.
I got one last question for the play calling. The last sequence to end the game.
Oh,
encapsulates the entire abysmal performance on for the play calling. So they're clearly trying to run the clock because they run it on first down. They ran it on the second down. You're in field goal range. It's 3rd and 15. You already forced Green Bay to use 2 timeouts. For some reason, they throw an out route. It's incomplete. Stops the clock. Doesn't force Green Bay to use their final timeout. And they use that timeout to get in field goal range and win the game.
Bro, CJ Stroud could have taken a sack and they were to run out the clock more and force Green Bay to take to get that timeout.
Yeah, because you're already in easy field goal range. It was like a 34, 35 yard. That's easy range. Even if you get sacked, it's still within Fairbairn's range.
Just run the ball. Just run the ball one more time. You either get a yard or lose a yard. Fairbairn is still, the second best kicker in the league. You can gamble on that. But if you're gambling on Green Bay, maybe making it to field goal range, the way that we're getting, driving the ball, like you knew you weren't going to be able to stop them.
Yeah, if you're trying to score a touchdown, you're not going to catch them off guard on 3rd and 15.
Yeah,
when you haven't had any success throwing the ball all game, like I don't understand it. And after the game, when they interviewed CJ, he was kind of confused by it as well. Like there was clearly a miscommunication somewhere. I don't know if it was either with him or with Bobby, but they were not on the same page, and it showed because that was even the announcers were like, what are they doing? Like, if you're trying to run the clock, why would you throw it?
So in that sequence, Rios, it was a 2-minute warning. A two-minute warning. Joe Mixon up the middle to the Green Bay 15 for -2 yards, mind you. Timeout by Green Bay at 1:56. That's 4 seconds off the clock. Next one. Joe Mixon to the left guard to the Green Bay 17 for -3 yards.
Not bad.
Timeout by Green Bay at 1:52. Then here's the part where you're talking about, where I think everybody saw this part.
Yeah.
At 1:52, shotgun CJ Stroud passing complete, short right to Tank Dell. And then Kaimi Fairbairn, good for a 35-yarder. Kaimi had room. You could have gotten the sack. Heck, run it up with Mixon again and get -10 for all that matters. Let him get tackled in the backfield, for goodness sake. But you run up the clock and you force Green Bay into a timeout to take their last timeout. And what? Green Bay can probably go, 2 or 3 conservative plays after that to try to get to it?
Yeah.
I mean, between that and not challenging that forward pass that was clearly a fumble.
Can we talk about that fumble?
Dude,
that should have been called, bro. That should have been called.
How do you not challenge for that?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what are you afraid of? You losing your challenge?
Yeah.
Bro, you there's nothing to lose for you. Like, marica, déjame decirte.
Dime.
Everybody watching that, like where I was watching, because I was at work when it happened, everybody watching that was like, dude, that was definitely a fumble. That was definitely not like.
And then
we all looked at each other like,
that was
are they not going to challenge? No flag.
It would have been
nothing?
a favorable call, even if it wasn't. Like, it still shows initiative that you were willing to call it.
Take a risk, but what happens? They run to the line, target Ross, easy touchdown.
Yeah, like literally, the very next play was
a
Ross
touchdown.
getting burnt.
He was 30 yards behind the receiver. Like, what are you doing, man?
So
the transition.
The transition there. With that is my area of concern. I think I talked about it last week before. As soon as Kamari Lassiter went out,
we're talking about it all season.
Well, I mean, we talked about it during the Patriots game. I was like, D'Angelo Ross had a decent game, but again, it was because he was going against Drake May and basically no receivers. And I remember saying to you guys, that's not sustainable, because once he starts once they start realizing that area of weakness, D'Angelo Ross, to his own respect, he's not a Kamari Lassiter. That's the reason why Kamari Lassiter got him. Jeff Okudah technically should be there, but he's on the IR right now. So what do? You got to go and get some D'Angelo Ross. But guess what? Again, in the Patriots game, he was effective. I'll give him that. But when you have a quarterback and like Jordan Love, who is smart enough to pick you apart and realize that's an area of weakness, if Jordan Love's going to do it, guess what? This film is going to be studied, because further on, because now they're going to know CJ Stroud, he's going to get pressure. They're going to bring the pressure. They're going to target D'Angelo Ross's side. And again, the Texans have been pretty weak on the wideout spot too. Jalen Petrie, like he was playing mostly linebacker yesterday, this weekend too. But it's part of this. Yeah, he did fine, but that's mostly again. He's close to line of scrimmage as that position at Baylor. He was okay, but we've seen inconsistencies from from Jalen Petrie as well in that position. It's like he's still acclimating to it. I guess, but I mean this time it was beneficial. So credit to that. But the fact that they're still going through issues with the wideout. They're going to target D'Angelo Ross. The safety position is still an area of concern. So that secondary is struggling. So that's my area of concern.
Yeah, Eric Murray and D'Angelo, they're not starting caliber, NFL safeties and corners. Like they should not be seeing, 70, 80% of the snaps. And they're going to have to address that because you're going against some really good quarterbacks in the next few weeks.
Like
maybe not so much on Sunday. Anthony Richardson, he's still, having some issues with his accuracy, but after that, you play. Is
it gonna be AR playing this Sunday?
Yes, it looks like it. Yeah, I don't think he's in the injury report or whatever. And if he is, he played this past weekend, so I think he should be fine. But after the Jets game, you got the Lions.
You got the Lions, and then you get the Cowboys.
Dude.
By the way, you get Jared Goff in prime time.
We're gonna get cooked by the Lions, dude. The way
they're playing right now,
offensively, the way they're playing, like our defense can definitely hang in there, but if we can't get points on the board, dude, it's gonna get away from us real quick, quick.
All right, let's transition over to the positive because we still got to talk about the upcoming game against.
There were like two positive.
Yeah, exactly. So this will be quick. I'll go with mine on this one really quick. Joe Mixon. I think Joe Mixon gets his flowers from me. Without Joe Mixon, this offense that we saw portrayed on Sunday is completely worse. I would think you would have a game that's similar to the Minnesota game.
Correct.
But Joe Mixon had 25 attempts, 115 yards. 115 yards. He was averaging about 4.6 yards. He had 2 touchdowns, and his longest run was the 32. See, Joe Mixon was one of the main reasons, again, why the Texans stayed in the game as much as they did, alongside with, Green Bay just handing over turnovers to the Texans. So my flowers go to Joe Mixon. The Texans were wondering, when Nico Collins was there, what would this team look like without, with the addition of Joe Mixon? And yes, the Texans got to see part of it with the Bears game. I don't remember if he played for the Colts the week after that. I can't remember, but I know for sure that Bears game. But they were both together. But aside from that, you really haven't seen Nico and Mixon really on the field. Much. Yeah, not really, right? And it's always been the other way. Now that Mixon's back, you got Nico Collins out.
Yeah.
So it's the opposite. So and the thing is, the Texans have been riddled with injuries this season. Christian Harris hasn't played it down yet this season.
That's crazy.
Denico Autry just came back this past weekend. It's the first time he sees the field. And then you had no defense. So the positives for me, I think the defense held as much as they could. Credit to Neville Hewitt. Credit to Jalen Petrie. The defense held what they could. I'll say this: the defense did show up. They held the Texans in. For missing as many key players as they were, I think the defense gets their flowers too. So Joe Mixon, the defense for me. Rios.
Yeah, Mixon was the lone bright spot on offense. But for me, like we mentioned, the defense was really set up with all those key injuries. They still kept the score close where it was definitely winnable. The one that stood out to me the most was Caleb Bullock.
Yep.
Yes.
Definitely. I think
year one.
This could be your defensive rookie of the year. And it'd be crazy. He's having back-to-back defensive rookie of
3 interceptions on the year, correct?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
he's up there as far as league leaders in picks, and he's a rookie. He's been one of the lone bright spots. I would like to see him get a little bit more playing time. If I can get more Kalen Bullock and less Eric Murray, I think my heart rate will, get back in the check.
No medication.
Yeah.
No
more
medication.
Peacemakers. No more peacemakers.
Oh, my chest.
Me duele.
Well, yeah, Bullock definitely gets the flowers. He's like I said, he was one of the he's been one of the bright spots at secondary that's been a little lackluster this season.
Yeah, 100%. Definitely. Kalen Bullock deserves his flowers. Defense showed up for sure. Papi, well, who gets your flowers?
I mean, you guys pretty much already mentioned everything that was good about it. Joe Mixon, definitely player of the game for me. The defense is really the main thing that kept us competitive in that game. But you also gotta, it's like 6 weeks in a row now. You gotta give credit where it's due. Our kicker, Kaimi Fairbairn, still proving that he's definitely top 2 kickers in the league. I was happy when he got the extension he got, and he has proven to be worth every single penny, every week in and week out.
Agreed. He's very consistent. I think he's very consistent at what he does. Yeah. I mean, this is a guy that you would definitely trust in a big game situation.
Yeah, like a lot of our wins this season have come to like 1 possession games, and he's the big reason for it.
Yeah, it's like that Patriots game. They've all been 1 possession wins, and he is the team MVP at this point.
So, definitely. Quick question. Speaking of which, we were talking about kickers. Last question before we transition over to the Colts. McManus, you know how he's McManus, the kicker for the Green Bay Packers, who really, I mean, he was with the Jags beforehand, and then that's the last that we really knew about him. So would you have ice the kicker? You had like 2 more timeouts left. Would you guys have ice the kicker? Just wondering.
Yeah,
I mean, I would have. I was surprised that they didn't, but
because I mean, he's coming off really. Where was he at before the Jags? Was he at home?
He was on the couch.
There you go. Why not ice him? Like, that's another thing.
He was out doing DoorDash before he got the phone call.
Well, that's what it was.
No, but I mean, the one miscue that the defense did have was they gave him a better shot at a closer field goal because they had them around like a 50-yard field goal, more or less. And they gave it that long completion that made it like, an extra point, basically. Yeah. And then you don't ice the kicker either. It's just a comedy of errors.
Yeah,
when you said he was doing DoorDash, I thought he delivered a white left to me.
He was never gonna miss that field goal.
Not from that distance. From 50.
Not from that distance. Like, honestly, like going back to maybe show some initiative from the coaching staff, maybe to ice him and try everything, throw everything and the kitchen sink at it, just in the hopes that he does miss it. But when they got into field goal range, I was like, it's over.
Yeah. Same. I was like, once they made that long completion, they make it a 35-yard field goal. Yeah, it's
part of me for a second, because it was going a little too close to the left, right? Part of me was like, oh, overtime sounds like really nice for a game like this, because anything can happen in overtime. But
it wouldn't have been overtime if he misses. Houston wins the game if he misses.
Yeah.
Yeah, but at the time, that's all I was thinking about. I was like, what could possibly happen, type of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was. Yeah.
All right. Last thing that we need to talk about before we go, the Colts Texans upcoming game. I'll read you D'Amico Ryans' quote on the importance of the upcoming game against the Colts. D'Amico said, This game is big this week. The Colts coming into our house, and it's a game for first place. It's a huge game for us, and we have a bad taste in our mouth from last week. And so we're excited about this opportunity. It's what I told our guys. You can't get up from this game. Why are you here? So this is a big game. Everybody understands the impact of this game, and we're excited to move on to this one. Your thoughts really quick, Rios. Give us a little bit of keys to victory also.
This game is a must win. Like, you don't really say that too much, but it's a divisional game, and like you mentioned in the quote, it's for first place. If Houston wins, they have a 2-game lead on the Colts, and they own the tiebreaker against them.
Mm-hmm.
If they lose, Indy is tie first place with Houston, and they would own the tiebreaker.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of those games they can't afford to lose. I think the keys for victory is they got to do a much better job of containing those deep shots, because Anthony Richardson is not the type of quarterback that's going to pick you apart, with precision passing. It's going to be his running ability and hitting those deep shots.
Mm-hmm.
If they can limit the big plays and force him to be a pocket passer, it should make the defense's job a little bit easier. And on offense, they got to find some kind of rhythm in the passing game.
Mm-hmm.
They got to take what the defense gives them. I know a lot of times CJ is looking for the big play. I think with Nico not there, you're not going to get those big plays with Tank and Stephon Diggs. The way that they've been running the offense so far, it's like you basically have Stephon Diggs, work in the middle of the field. He's not going to give you a lot of big plays. And Tank Dell, they need to figure out some creative ways to get him the ball in space. He's one of your more dynamic playmakers, and they have done an abysmal job of getting him the ball in space or drawing up plays for him to get him going, because it's one of those guys, you get him going, he's going to produce for you.
All right. Papi, what are your keys to victory, and what do you expect to see?
Man, it's tough, man, because going into the first game we played against them this year, you had two big difference makers. Joe Mixon had a big game, 159 yards that game, and Nico Collins, 117 yards. We're short one of those guys going into this week. With the lack of creativity in the play calling and, a little bit deeper into the season, now the Colts have a better understanding on how to beat them. Like, let's not forget that they could have won that game in week 1. So now that they know that, we just got to be more aggressive in the pass rush, now that they're missing Nico Collins, right? Like, they have the blueprint to beat the Texans. And like Rios said, this is a must win. You want to make sure that you got this division over with as soon as possible. And the Colts haven't been great, do not get me wrong. But if they win, then they inch ever so slightly to the Texans. And you do not want to wait till, the final game of the year to see if you're going to, make it to the playoffs or not. Like, we're talking about the Lions the week after. We're talking about that stretch of games later in the year where we're playing Baltimore, we're playing Kansas City. These games are the ones that if you don't win, then you're going into Arrowhead thinking, we got to come away with a win. And even though Kansas City hasn't been on anything this year, they're still the only undefeated team this season.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
They're not even playing their best ball, and they're undefeated.
So what's so for me on this one, I think they have to drop better plays at the on the run. So point blank, Joe Mixon did play that game against the Colts in game 1. It was he rushed for 159 yards. He was averaging 5.3 yards per carry, so that's pretty good. Longest of 13. He had a touchdown as well. So he was, I would say, predominantly very successful against the Colts. One of his better games. So therefore, honestly, utilizing Joe Mixon on the run in more creative ways. I know that we keep saying that, and we just hope it sticks. Bobby, if you're listening. Also,
no more halfback dives.
Yes, exactly. The thing is this, it's weird to say because we talked about it so much when Davis Mills was at the helm. Those short passes, those checkdowns, they need to create some of those because it makes up for the run here and there. Those checkdown plays, the thing is they do have designs for them, but they're not good at executing them right now because they're not creative. They're very predictable. Huh? They're Rebecca Levis. They're very predictable.
Like, if you look at the Detroit Lions with Ben Johnson, like, look at how innovative those play calls are.
Yeah,
like his playbook is about as big as a phone book, and Bobby Slowick's playbook is about this big.
And the thing about it though, yeah, it is. And the thing about it though is like they can throw. When he does use like screen passes, there you go. Oh, that's where he wrote his words. Where he does throw those little screens, it's at the most ineffective times. When he throws those little screen passes, little checkdowns, it's at the most ineffective times. And I feel like that's the lack of creativity. It's almost like there's a struggle between what CJ Stroud is able to do and what he's told to do. Does that make sense? And it was similar to what, remember when Brian with Deshaun Watson and Bill O'Brien, there was like it almost seemed like a power struggle at that time at some points. Then I think it's almost one of those things where, well, let CJ cook, but at the same time, it's like, well, you still got to protect them, because even if you try to let him cook, you still got to protect them no matter what. So,
from my understanding, I don't think he's allowed to audible.
I mean,
is he really not?
He's not allowed to audible. He's like, I get the play calls from Bobby. Like,
yeah, I think that was one of his quotes, if I'm not mistaken.
See, I did not know that.
Yeah, that's right. He did say that today. He mentioned that. I think he said there was a misunderstanding in the communication in one of his quotes, post game Sunday. Is that correct?
Yeah,
and he talked about that.
Yeah, but he's basically not allowed to audible, which is crazy because your franchise quarterback. Give him the keys to the offense. I think he has a pretty good understanding of reading NFL level defenses and be able to, audible out of some of these pretty obvious, running plays or obvious screen passes. Like, give him the chance to audible, because I would trust his judgment, because what we've seen from Bobby so far is it's just not getting the job done. I don't think there's a more unpopular person in Houston right now than Bobby Slowick.
How much of a concern is that? The fact that your franchise quarterback, and he's not a rookie anymore, right?
Yeah, he's in his second season,
and it's not like it was just like a slow rookie season. He would have had the best rookie season we've ever seen. The fact that your franchise quarterback doesn't get to, see what the defense is doing and then change the play on the spot. I mean, what does that say about the way you're coaching this team and running this team?
It's a little concerning. And I think someone on Twitter had brought up a good point. They probably would have been better off going was a little bit more of a seasoned offensive coordinator, like a Cliff Kingsbury, or someone that has a little bit more experience under their belt. Because we saw some of those rookie pains last season with some of the play calling, and we were hoping, hey, season 2, the year under his belt, will be able to figure it out. But honestly, it feels like his play calling is really holding the offense back.
I think at this point, I'm just speculating here on this point. Would it be a possibility for Robert Saleh next season if Bobby does choose to go?
Well, Saleh is a defensive-minded coach. He wouldn't be calling offensive plays. I think more than even if with the struggles, he'd probably make it a interview or two for a head coaching position and probably takes it.
But after this, do you still think there's teams out there that will be like, ooh, would have us? Do you think Bobby would actually have some more, I guess, not interviews, that's not the right word, but like the more teams reaching out to him, after this season based on, this performance or whatnot? As
probably not as many as last season.
There's still going to be some teams out there, though.
Yeah. There'll be someone who takes a chance because he comes from the Shanahan offense. True. But his play calling is, I think we had mentioned it with when we had Watkins on our other show. He's very reminiscent of Mike McDaniels. They just don't really make adjustments. It's just they try to run their offense and they don't really take into account the personnel that they have. Like they were still trying to run the same offense when Joe Mixon was out, and Cam Akers
wasn't working.
And meanwhile, they're not the same caliber running back that Joe Mixon is. And you see that, like a lot of these run plays, they look like they're going to be losses, but just because of his, tenacity, he's able to pick up, extra 2 or 3 yards and turn a negative into a positive play.
True.
But even that can only get you so far, man.
The what?
Only that can get you so far. Like you have to. We've been talking about establishing the run and all of this stuff, but when the passing game is not there, then the run becomes predictable.
Yep.
And I think that the Colts are going to key on that.
Well, I think with the Colts, they're very bad at at run blocking, so they should have some success on the ground.
Yeah,
but you got to be able to get some smart passing game.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, the box of 9 guys, and good luck running on that.
So let's any score predictions on this one? Papi, we'll start with you. What do you think? Close game, beat down.
It's definitely going to be a close game again. I feel like the Texans are going to come back with a chip on their shoulder, and they're going to, like Rios says, it's a divisional game. It's a must-win game. D'Amico seems to be up for it as well. So I'm thinking the Texans are going to come out with the win, but I think it's going to be another one and of those ugly wins that we've been getting all year. I'm thinking 17-21 type thing.
Okay. Rios?
Well, we mentioned earlier, it's a must-win game, and I think D'Amico's going to have these guys prepared, and I think we'll see them not play a complete game, but definitely play much better than they did against Green Bay. And I think they win.
They're better.
It's not going to be a blowout. I think they do win by at least 2 scores. I'm going to go 28-14 Texans.
I would love that.
I would love that too, but honestly, I'm gonna keep it close as well. I'm gonna say on this one, I'm gonna go with 17-14. I'm gonna give the W to the Texans. I think D'Amico's gonna get the guys right. I think they're gonna be motivated, especially after seeing this. And if they're not, honestly, I feel like then there's absolutely no discipline at that point, because if you still see the same type of demeanor that you saw at Green Bay, where there was no hustle, no nothing, then
no sense of urgency.
Then what are we doing here? So honestly, I think they're going to get right after D'Amico. I feel like he's going to chew them out a little bit, but hopefully that sends a message across, because we did see a lot of video of like guys chipping off on the sidelines. Joe Mixon at one point, CJ. So I'm hoping that that is something that lights a fire under the guys' eyes, and maybe the O-line gets it straight. So, all right, that's going to be it for us this week. So please don't forget to check us out. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so yet. Follow us at BBlitzPod. That's all the way across for our YouTube channel, our Instagram account, and our X account. Follow us up. We're here every Tuesday. Our show gets uploaded after every game this entire season, and we talk about what happened, what went wrong, who gets their flowers, and, of course, preview for the following week's game like we did today. And please, this is all part of the Areskina Network. Follow them up on the Areskina at their Instagram account at Areskina. And, of course, the X account as well at Areskina. They're doing a lot of coverage with the Astros. Excuse me, for the Yankees. So I'm so used to it, for the Yankees and the Dodgers World Series stuff on Instagram. And, of course, speaking of baseball, these are the guys that you should follow for some great baseball content at the Full Steam Ahead. These guys give you great MLB and Astros content as well. And that's going to be it for us this week, guys. Check us out. We will be back next Tuesday around lunchtime. And, of course, follow us up also on Spotify if you don't want to see our ugly mugs here. That's going to be it, guys. See y'all next week. Peace.